Hi guys, the animal I'm gonna introduce today would be siamang, whose scientific name would be Symphalangus syndactylus. Syndactylus means united fingers in Latino, and united fingers refers to the unique feature of siamang, whose second and third toe are connected by webbing that is variable to an extent. As you can see from the taxonomical classification, the order of siamang would be primate, suborder Haplorhini, infraorder Simiformes, superfamily Hominoidid, family Hylobatid, genus Symphalangus, species Symphalangus syndactylus. And the interesting part is that there are actually two subspecies of siamang. One is Syndactylus, which lives in the Sumatra island of Indonesia. The other is Continentis, that lives in the Malay Peninsula. So as you can see from the photo, siamang are found on the island of Sumatra of Indonesia and also the Malay Peninsula. The subspecies Syndactylus lives in Sumatra, mainly on the west of the island, while the subspecies Continentis lives in Malaysia and the very southern part of Thailand. Siamang can live in lowland forests like this, and it can also live in freshwater swamp forest. But siamang is mostly found 300 meters in altitude. They can but are not commonly seen above 1500 meters. Tropical hill forest, tropical mountain forest are all their habitats. Their habitats are sympatric with those of some gibbons. As for the weather for their habitat, the seasons are not usually distinct in the tropical areas. In Sumatra island of Indonesia, annual temperatures can range between 72 to 95 Fahrenheit with 300 to 400 millimeters rainfall. In Malay Peninsula, however, there is a time of increased rainfall around the beginning of each year with the following driver season, which is accompanied by warmer temperatures. The temperature here varies between 61 to 92 Fahrenheit. The wet season lasts roughly from September to December, while the dry season lasts between January to April. Now let's see siamang's social system in captivity versus in wild. This video is the two siamangs that I filmed in the San Francisco Zoo. The basic siamang social group is a family made up of one male, one female, and as many as 4 of their young. Polyandry may also occur, with a single female and 2 typically unrelated males. Within each family, food is generously shared and fighting rarely occurs. Members of the same family will drive off strangers. Grooming is the most important social behavior, a display of dominance. The more dominant receives more grooming than it gives. Siamangs display an unusually high level of parental care. At about 1 year of age, the adult male takes over most of the daily care of the young, but the prolonged maternal care of infants by the mother may last as long as 20 months. Siamangs are notable for having more coordination and contact during daily activities. Siamang groups usually forage for food as a unit. The life of a siamang follows a routine. They wake up at sunrise and perform their morning concert, and then set out in search of food. But the behavior that I mentioned above will only occur in a wild environment. In contrast to the captive environment, siamangs are able to develop way more freely on their wild environment. In the wild, they need to prevent themselves from danger, forage for food by themselves, and take care of their offspring for almost 2 years. The weather becomes unpredictable, and they will have to figure out ways to keep themselves from getting diseases. It is in the wild when Siamese can demonstrate their territorial defense using vocalization. Because an adult pair and their offsprings will often act together, we are able to observe closely how they interact with themselves when it comes to food distribution or copulation, and how they communicate with outsiders or defend their territory. Without a fixed artificial setting, the theory of evolution is able to take place because these animals are left alone to fight against or work with their own resources. Now I will be comparing Siamese captive environment versus their wild environment. In the enclosure, there are steel railings, fences extending to the ceiling, long ropes extending from stakes to fences, 3 to 4 straight wooden stakes, and another 3 to 4 horizontal wooden stakes that intersect with the straight ones. There's a steel ladder on the wall. As for the floor, there's a small space where there's grass, and there are rocks where there are trees above. As for the bottom, there's a channel where salmon can go in for feeding. A weep hole is also present. As for the natural environment, salmon's habitats can range from tropical lowland to mountain forest. There, salmons are not confined to limited space and are more likely to establish territory. The land they go through every day are more unpredictable and without artificial tool or support. The weather is also uncontrollable for them. They have to withstand the heavy rain and seasonally dry weather in the Malay Peninsula. In addition, they will definitely encounter animals different from them and thus begin confrontation in between. In fact, in the wild, salmons live in the canopy of the trees, which is why their major locomotion is brachiation. But in the zoo setting, they do bipedal walking quite often because there simply aren't any big trees for them to grab and swing. They spend a lot of time on the ground, sitting instead of staying on the branches, which are artificially designed. If they are to do activities on the ground for most of their time in a wild environment, they will have to cope with the animals there and adjust themselves to the flooded floor caused by the heavy rain. Now I will be talking about salmon's captive behavior versus their wild behavior. I will choose their locomotion as my primary focus. As mentioned earlier, brachiation, the act of swinging using one's hand from one branch to another, takes up about 80% of salmon's locomotion in the wild. But when they are confined in the captive environment, you will find that it only takes 1 or 2 swings for them to reach from one end of the room to the other side. In this case, they will probably prefer just walking on the ground in captivity because brachiation is mainly for traveling in the canopy of the tropical forest. In addition to the animal's close proximity to the ground, their captive environment also lacks any incentives for them to brachiate. The wooden stakes are just scarcely distributed and maintained in the same position all the time. The oversimplistic setting is nothing like the wild environment and largely disturbs Xiameng's ability to demonstrate traits and skills that would have been widely seen in the wild otherwise. We need to remember that the canopy floor, the leafy world, which may be over 100 feet, which is 30 meters above the ground, is made up of the overlapping branches and leaves of rainforest trees. The environment there is extremely complex and changeable almost all the time. A branch might be broken down because of strong wind, and young xiaomengs need to learn how to grasp the branch, knowing which ones are firm and which ones are not. It is clear that for the animals that grow up in captivity for all their life, they will have a hard time at adjusting to the wild environment because their main locomotion is so different. Now I'm going to talk about xiaomengs as an endangered species and what caused it to happen and what have we done about it. When you go to the IUCN Endangered Red List, you can see xiaomengs listed under the endangered category. The justification IUCN gives is that for animals listed as endangered, there is a reason to believe that the species has declined by at least 50% over the past 40 years, due primarily to hunting for pet trade and continued rates of habitat loss. Although there has been 70 to 80% habitat loss of primary habitats within the past 50 years within the range of the species. Xiaomengs is one of the most adaptable gibbons to habitat change. Although the species occurs in numerous protected areas and retains a number of viable populations, it could in future be considered critically endangered due to historic habitat loss, and should be closely monitored in the future. Xiameng is threatened by forest conversion and pet trade on Sumatra, where both of these threats extend to populations in national parks and protection forests. Between 1995 and 2000, almost 40% of the habitat for the species on Sumatra was damaged or destroyed by logging, road development, and conversion to agriculture or plantations. Legal logging seems to be accelerating in Sumatra Island. Forests where they remain are extremely fragmented. Coffee plantations present an increasing threat. In addition, the xiaomengs are one of the most heavily traded gibbon species for illegal pet trade. After all of the bad news, what are the preventive measures humans are employing? Well, the species is protected throughout its range, both by local laws as well as internationally through its listing on CITES Appendix 1. Xiaomengs are known to occur in at least 9 protected areas such as national parks in Malaysia and Indonesia. Moreover, there is a large worldwide captive population in 96 collections. Although there seem to be laws on both local and international level, they are not strictly enforced. As long as human views increasing profit as the only purpose in the current capitalism system, we will only see more and more habitat loss replaced by plantation of palm oil or coffee trees. What do you know about xiaomeng?
Looks like a monkey, like an ape.
Not much. They're a kind of ape. I'm pretty sure they have some linkage to gibbons.
No, I don't know anything about them.
I've never heard of them, but based from what they look like, they kind of look like monkeys. So I assume that their natural habitat is in the forest.
After checking the pictures, I think I saw that monkey before, the one that kind of
Shallots maybe?